Hello friends, this is Mike from Wright, and this is the explanation video for SAT 2's reading section, passage number 2, question 11. This is the first question of the passage. Let's get started. The main purpose of the passage is to. This is a purpose question. How do we know? Well, it's got the word purpose in it. Usually that means it's a purpose question. Here we're wondering, why did the author sit down and write this? Must have taken a lot of work. Author had to do a lot of research. What was the point of all of that? We want to answer this question with our mental understanding, both of the progression of ideas in the passage, the core ideas that are being expressed or argued for in the passage, and also our understanding of the meta summary, the structure of the passage, how the passage is laid out. Now, I go into a whole lot of detail on all that stuff in the annotations video, which is linked in the description. So here I'm just going to jump straight to the answer choices, assuming you understand what's going on. Answer choice A, the main purpose of the passage is to consider an ethical dilemma posed by cost-benefit analysis. Now, you might have read that phrase, cost-benefit analysis, and been like, I'm so smart, I know where that was. Line 23, boom! Cost-benefit analysis, right there. Answer choice A, moving on. Right? Well, this is a main purpose question. It's not enough for something to be a thing that is mentioned in the passage. That's enough for a lot of detail questions, obscure things that you need to be really clever to remember, that you need to be really clever in order to be able to rapidly locate. That's the recipe for answering detail questions well. But here, just because something's mentioned doesn't mean it's the main reason why it's mentioned, and this is a great example of this because cost-benefit analysis is only mentioned really in passing. It's one of 3 examples that the author uses to describe Adam Smith's general vibe. This isn't, in other words, a cost-benefit analysis passage where the author was like, these readers need to know what cost-benefit analysis is. Let me tell them. Cost-benefit analysis is just one of many things the author happens to mention. It isn't the main reason why they wrote the passage. Now, in addition to that, let's look at the claim to which cost-benefit analysis as a thing is attached. Here, the answer choice A is saying that the main purpose is to consider an ethical dilemma posed by cost-benefit analysis. Now, in order for this claim to be true, cost-benefit analysis needs to be a thing where in the passage it poses an ethical dilemma. Ethical dilemma is, so here's the situation where we're using cost-benefit analysis. We're like, what are the costs of this thing? What are the benefits of this thing? And then we run smack into an ethical dilemma. Should I do this? Should I do this or should I do that? I don't know. It's a dilemma. That's not what happens in the passage. Here, and if we go back to the line, which is something you ought to do if you're seriously considering this answer choice, right, is to read the context. Whenever planners use cost-benefit analysis to justify a new rail line, blah, 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 they are using the same approach. Which approach? Adam Smith's general approach to empathizing with themselves, seeking good outcomes. Now, there's no mention of a dilemma here, and this is the passage's entire discussion of cost-benefit analysis. There's nothing else in the passage. So even though cost-benefit analysis is a thing, and that's not enough, it's not a thing that poses a dilemma. So regardless of whether it's considered, the dilemma doesn't exist, and certainly not one posed by cost-benefit analysis. 2 reasons then why answer choice A is wrong. All right, answer choice B. The main purpose of the passage is to describe a psychology study of ethical economic behavior. Now, the reasons why answer choice B is wrong are going to parallel almost exactly the reasons why answer choice A is wrong. First, it's not the main thing. It's a thing. Psychology is a thing, and it's a thing right here. Check this out. I even circled it. Boom, psychology. Right answer, right? Well, no, it's not enough for it to be a thing that happens in the passage. It has to be the damn main thing. The reason why the author sat down has to be, guys, I'm going to describe this psychology study. People don't know about the psychology study. I need to describe it to them. Imagine what a passage would look like if the author sat down and that was their main goal, right? Imagine yourself trying to write a good description of a psychology study. You'd probably start by being like, these scientists were curious about the question of how many minds can fit into one mind. And then they recruited these people. You're going to describe the methods they used. They recruited a bunch of undergraduates to take a survey about how many brains they think they have, you know? And then you're going to describe the results they got, the data that they got. And then you're going to do some analysis of that data. And then you're going to offer some conclusions about that and point to the future research, right? That's what a passage whose main purpose is to describe a psychology study, that's what that kind of passage would look like. That would be the meta summary or the structure of that kind of passage. You know, that's not what's going on here. Instead, psychology is just, again, it's mentioned in passing. It's mentioned as part of the author's sort of commentary about the main point, which is that there are different ways of looking at ethics and economics, and these three different ways don't have to butt heads, but they can sometimes play nicely together. Psychology is just a sort of tertiary, auxiliary point to that. All right. Separately, though, again, let's look at the specific claim. Here, the answer choice is saying that the main purpose is to describe a psychology study. A psychology study. All right? If we're describing a psychology study, there has to be a psychology study somewhere. There's psychology as a field. We're talking about, oh, psychology is interesting, but we never mention a psychology study. Which psychology study are we talking about, right? There's never any mention of a single one. They just talk about psychology in general. So there's like a close reading specific claims reason why answer choice B is wrong. On to answer choice C. The main purpose of the passage is to argue, and already arguing is not really what our author is doing here. The author is more like describing or evaluating. But here, argue that the free market prohibits ethical economics. Now, here's another very specific claim. And I actually kind of like the direction this claim is going in, right? It's talking about how the free market is related to ethical economics. This is like actually the main point that the author is talking about. This isn't some side point, oh, like this isn't a passage about the free market and it's just mentioned. Like, no, the free market and ethical economics is core to this passage. The reason why this answer choice is wrong, then, is rooted in the specific claim this answer choice makes. Here, the answer choice is saying that the free market prohibits ethical economics. That is to say, ethical economics is over here, the free market is over here, prohibiting ethical economics, being like, no ethical economics, you're not allowed to exist because I'm the free market. Now, that's the opposite of the point that our author is making. There is a relationship between the free market and ethical economics, but as we see in the specific example that the author uses about fair trade coffee, and here just to go into a little bit of detail, right? Fair trade coffee is an example of a thing where all three viewpoints are happy, because buying it has good consequences, so Adam Smith is happy. It's virtuous, so Aristotle's happy. And it's also the right way to act in a flawed market, so the actions people are happy. That's all three viewpoints, all happy. And here, the main point of this example is that ethical economics is still possible. All of this happened from the author's point of view. And this is the author saying ethical economics is still possible. So answer choices C is righter than answer choices A and B in the sense that it touches upon something that's core to the passage. It just happens to get the specific claim wrong. This underscores the importance not only of understanding the meta summary, not only of understanding the progression of ideas, but also keeping a close eye on the specific claims being made in every single answer choice and how they relate to the specific word-for-word claims that are mentioned in the passage. All right, on to answer choice D. This answer choice is right, word for word. This is claiming that the main purpose of the passage is to explain ways of examine ways of evaluating the ethics of economics. Here, let's look at it word for word. The main purpose of the passage is to examine stuff. Yeah, sure, what's examining? Well, it's describing and then kind of looking more closely at. That's what the author is doing to these three viewpoints. Well, okay, examine ways of evaluating stuff. What ways are we talking about in this answer choice? Well, there's different ways of doing stuff that the author is talking about, that the author is examining. Here the different ways are Adam Smith's way. Ethics is all about empathy, guys, but empathy's stupid and it's all about being selfish. Way number 2, Aristotle. Ethics is all about virtue. You gotta be a nice person. All right, way number 3, actions. Ethics is a list of do's and don'ts. These are 3 ways that the author is examining. What are they ways of? They're ways of evaluating the ethics of economics. They're ways of looking at the ethics of economics and making critical decisions about what the ethics of economics are. is this thing right? Is that thing right? Is this way of looking at ethics right or wrong? All right, this answer choice is right, word for word, because the author did sit down the morning that they wrote this, intending to examine a bunch of different ways that we all can look at the ethics of economics. That's all for this question. I'll see you in the next one.